very important. So Aaron Stolp's best week in personal sales is 49,908 premium. 49,908 in premium. He's still mad because he was an ICU rider away from writing 50K in a week. His best day is writing 20,500 of premium in a day. Yeah, this is top talent. He's in Transparent Financial, recruited by Justin Ellingson, #1 agency owner in the entire company, and he's like a Justin mini-me. Like, he is like a clone of Justin. So guys, we have him right here in our Charlotte office. This is a big freaking deal. So take notes, write every word he says, because what he says is liquid gold. So this is going to be like an interview setting. So I'm going to ask Aaron some questions and pick his brain. So first question for Aaron Stolp. He's only been here 4.5 years. Aaron, why did you come here in the first place?
Yeah, so thank you for that intro. And yeah, I'm definitely still kind of frustrated that I didn't get that PK, but there's still time. Yeah, when I came here, I was actually in a really good industry. I was making over 6 figures. I was making about $130,000 a year, and I was in the car world. And it was one of those things where I love vehicles. That would probably be my crutch if I had a lot of excess money to spend on random stuff. It'd be vehicles. But it was an industry where it was extremely toxic. I remember making really good money, but being like just waking up every single day not wanting to go to work, just because I knew that it was cutthroat. People would literally cut you off and try and steal clients when you were talking to them. People would get mad if you were successful because it meant that they weren't, right? Even though you took the initiative to go work and they sat on a couch playing on their phone, they'd still be mad at you, and you were looked at as a bad guy for doing your job. And it drove me nuts. Everything was political. They never promoted the top 3 salespeople because it just meant that they'd have to replace that production. So the people that got promoted were people that were best friends with the owner's son, or, you know, the 6th place salesperson because their production was easy to replicate. You never got nights and weekends off. You never had family time. And I grew up in a family where my parents made good income. My mom probably made like 60, 80,000. My dad probably made 130 as well. And it was a decent income, but I saw that they still had struggles, right? And it was one of those things where my dad was always working. He'd be at baseball games, but he'd be the guy that was on his laptop during the baseball game because he was on call. And it was extremely important to me, looking long term, that I was never going to be that father for my kid. And the writing was on the wall at the dealership when they denied a guy time off to go to his kindergartner's orientation, right? Like, and I remember asking myself, like, do I take a pay cut to have more family time, or do I just keep doing what I'm doing for $130,000 a year, even though I was never going to be able to move up? It was a ceiling, right? And so Justin and I connected. We've known each other ever since college, right? So I've known him for a while and kind of lived vicariously off of his Facebook photos. Like, he was the guy that was always traveling, and I wanted that too. So we connected, and it's funny, I didn't even tell Justin I was licensed for 2 months because I didn't know if I wanted to do this. And then finally, my wife told me, she's like, go for it. There's always going to be another dealership. So that's kind of why I came here, was just the ability to, you know, grow, the ability to be supported, the ability to have that balance without having to sacrifice income.
Love it. That is awesome, Aaron. So another question for you. You had such an incredible start to your career here, running over 17K your first week, 56,000 in your first 5 weeks here. That's averaging, you know, about 11,000 per week your first 5 weeks. That is very impressive. Well, I mean, what helped you have such a good start to your career?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have what's called fear of the unknown when they come into a career like this. But if you've been in sales, you typically actually have fear of the known, which I think is actually a little more powerful. And so I knew what this was going to entail, right? Like, I wasn't going to be at a dealership where people were coming in, but I also wasn't going to be limited by no people coming in, right? Like, it was 100% on me. And I had a lot of confidence that I was up for that task. But I'm also the type of person where I understand that proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, to where if I paid the price early, it'd pay off, right? Because it's so crazy to me where we see the end goal and what that reward is, but yet we have that choice. Do we pay the price and hit it head on earlier? Or do we get stuck in, and pay that price for longer to get to the same end result? So I knew coming into this that I wanted to be in leadership long-term. However, the only way to get there was to hit obstacles and pay the price head on. So what that meant was I came out of sales school on a Thursday. My first day was on a Monday. It could have been easy for me to relax, especially after sales school. But I literally locked myself in a room and I spent 4 days writing out my sales talk and studying it. I filled 4 notebooks full of just writing out my sales talk. Because I knew that as long as I knew what I was saying, and it absolutely sucked doing it, because back then we had a 8-9 page sales talk. It was crazy. But I memorized it word for word. And I knew that if I knew what I was saying, I could focus more on answering questions, reading body language, learning about different industries, learning the nuances of who to ask for, all the other stuff that you can't focus on if you're trying to remember what you're saying, right? So I paid the price early, did whatever it took to learn. And because of that, I actually had 5 families protected my first day. But even after writing over 2,500 my first day, I still spent 2 hours that night studying. And I did that every single day my first 3 months. The other thing is I was leaving an industry where I was making good money and I couldn't afford to take a step backwards. I just bought a house, just got married. I had no savings. And I was leaving a 6-figure income. So I knew that if the average person protected 5 out of 25 presentations, I didn't see myself as average, but I also had no reasonable logic that if the average person had a 20% close ratio, there was no reason to think that I could come in here and just naturally have a double percentage close ratio, right? Like there was no reasonable thought that was like, oh yeah, having never done this, I could close 10 out of 25. So instead, I worked the numbers backwards to figure out how much money I needed to make and how many presentations that would equal, which ended up being 36 presentations a week. So I just did not quit on a day until I had 8 presentations. And it wasn't working a shift. It didn't matter how many calls I had to get. It was just whatever it took to get my 8 presentations in a day. And because of that, I was able to, have the start that I had. But also because of that higher activity, I was able to speed that learning curve up because I was exposing myself to so much more rejection and so many more situations than most people do. But it was because I was willing to pay that price early on to speed up that learning curve.
Wow. You said about 80 powerful nuggets right there that I hope you guys are taking notes. This is fire. So you had a great start. You've always led from the front in sales. You've always been a top sales agent here. So quick question, what part of the sales cycle do you absolutely crush? Like what is your go-to? Like what part of the sales cycle do you get excited about?
All of it. Every part. Imagine being in this career and imagine only working with one niche. You're limiting yourself to so much more, right? Like there's so much more out there. So imagine if you were only good at the approach. You're only going to connect with so many people. So it's not about being good at one specific part. It's about perfecting every part, right? Because that's going to allow you to be really good at other things that are more meaningful than the words you say. But you only get to that point when you know your words. So for example, what I'm really good at is being able to listen and tailor things to that individual specific need, regardless of whether it's risk, regardless of whether it's industry, regardless of what they spend money on based off of what they've told me. But a lot of that is because I don't have to think about the words that I'm saying. And it was because I spent time to where it was like, I'm going to get my approach down to where I can just spit it out without even thinking of it and still be confident. And that was my sole focus, was my approach. Like when I'm training somebody, I don't even let them focus on the introduction or the buying atmosphere until they're naturally getting 6 demos a day. Because none of it matters until they're getting 6 demos a day without thinking about it, right? And then when the approach is down, that's when we move to the next piece and you perfect it. Then you move to the next piece and you perfect it, right? And It's having that learning mindset of not being complacent with where you're at and continually paying the price. That's when you're able to look back and be in a completely different situation faster than you ever would have realized. But it's because of the focus that you had and the dedication that you had to being a master of what you're doing.
Wow. Master every part of the cycle to sell. That is awesome, Aaron. Hey, so, you sell a lot of premium. People are thinking, what kind of businesses do you sell to? Let me ask you, Aaron, what kind of businesses do you sell to?
Everything. I remember my first week. I remember asking Justin what businesses are the best. I remember asking myself, this doesn't seem like it's a high probability business. And I had to catch myself in those thoughts. I remember telling myself, yeah, Aaron, you could just go to that business. But a year from now, you're going to be stuck and only know how to work with that business. And I asked myself, can you imagine a year from now if every single business was a niche? Like, the only way you get that is from exposure and experience, and you guys could list off any business in the world. And I could probably tell you 15 of those businesses that I work with. Maybe not an underwater welder, right? Because we don't have an ocean in Minnesota. But any business I work with, and it stemmed from just going to everybody. I don't skip businesses. A lot of people ask me how you work a territory. Well, I start on the road I'm coming in on, and I hit the very first business that's on my way into town. And then it's no thinking, because it's just everybody, right? Because again, if you're looking through the lens of pay the price now, you can get to the reward quicker and be in that reward phase longer, right? Everything's going to work out, right? Are you delaying your learning curve by not doing things, or are you speeding it up by doing a lot of those things that gives you a hesitation, right? Because if you have a hesitation on it, you should just go do it, because it's going to end that hesitation and you're going to learn. So I work with everybody.
Yeah, that is huge. And so we're going to talk a little bit about leadership. So you went from a sales professional to a regional director, within your first couple of years here. What helped you grow up the career track so fast?
Yeah, and I actually had a slower leadership path than what I probably could have, just because for my first 6 months, I didn't feel I was good enough or experienced enough to be able to train people. But I guess in reality, if you can make $24,000 in your first 5 weeks, you're more than qualified to train somebody. If you've written an eagle, you're qualified to lead. Like, you are. Buy in, believe in yourself, and just take the step, because there's people in this world that have never even thought of making $4,000 in a week. They struggle to make $4,000 in a month, right? So if you can do that in a week, you are so qualified to start now. But on the flip side, the biggest thing that I knew is, in order to be in leadership, I had to be extremely good in sales. I mean, I work with Justin Ellingson. He was not going to put somebody or trust me with training somebody if I was mediocre. Like, I had to be extremely efficient. I had to be duplicatable. Because we just won't let somebody train if their system is art, right? Because you have an artist and then you have me. I can't duplicate a Picasso, right? I can draw a stick figure. Same thing in your sales talk. Like, are you doing all these crazy things that, yeah, it may work for you, but are you duplicatable for somebody that has no experience to come in and replicate, right? Like, so in order for me to advance, I had to be extremely good at my sales process. I had to be by the book, because new people coming in, if I was completely different than what they learned, it discredited our sales talk. But it also meant that they were going to feel lost and confused to, like, oh man, I can't do that. Whereas if I was by the book, they're going to be able to, like, oh, you do the same thing that we teach. And now we have traction, right? And then the biggest one, I guess, is just, I was willing to pay the price. I remember being in Orlando for the end of the year meeting, and I had the first 8 people that I trained quit. And I gave away so much premium. And that was at a point where I was still needing premiums to pay for my stuff, right? Like, but I knew erring on the side of generosity would pay off. But I also had to look at those failures as things that I learned. I remember being in Orlando looking at Justin Kurtz, who had 5 people on his team, and he started after I did. And I was so frustrated. I'm like, all right, just keep paying the price, keep erring on the side of generosity, and it's going to click. But what happened is I learned so much about myself. I learned what I was doing wrong. I learned which areas I needed to tweak. I learned which people you pour into, especially even which people you over donate premiums to because they're doing what they say. And I also learned which people you don't give a ton of premiums to because then they just don't work after because they have a paycheck. But all of that was learned through failure. And just like in sales, you have to catch yourself doing things right. Because if all you're ever looking at is what you did wrong, that's extremely depressing. And I had to truly buy into the concept of progress, not perfection, right? Same thing in leadership. I had to pay the price. I had to learn. And ultimately, I had to fail. But the biggest thing is I took on a philosophy that if somebody quit, it wasn't going to be on me. If somebody failed in this career, it wasn't going to be because I didn't do my dead level best to help them. Whether it was flying out, I mean, just the last 2 weeks, right before Mexico, flew to Nashville, worked with a gal named Kayla. You know, she rode an eagle in her first week. I was in Nashville Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, rode an eagle her first week. Guess what? I also flew out there the next week for 2 days, rode another eagle. It's just, and I have 2 kids, right? Like it's heartbreaking if my daughter says, "Is Daddy going on an airplane?" But it's also the phase of like, I know that if somebody is trusting me with their success to be their coach, if they fail, it cannot be because I didn't give them my dead level best. And everything works out.
Wow. That was absolutely amazing. 2 young kids flew out as a high-end regional director to go train an agent in a different state, eagle back-to-back weeks. That is powerful. So that kind of answers my next question is, you know, you're one of the best trainers the company's ever had. You know, Aaron, he doesn't just sell a lot of premium when he's out there in the field, but he also leads from the front. Like he gets people, he's got agents on his team that he has trained to be in the top 10 of the company, you know, top 30, top 50. He's got several of his agents that are ranked, you know, and it's because they watch him. You know, he has raised his lid so he can produce at a high level, and the team just follows what he does. So let's just, you know, kind of following up, and then we'll ask the crowd if they have any questions. Any tips on like just basic, because we do have a lot of agents who are just now getting into field training, and they're recruiting, you know, a person or 2 a quarter, and they're doing a lot of field training. Any tips on just like field training, you know, and setting those expectations the first couple of days for the brand new agent?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a little redundant, but just, you know, follow that field training outline we created. I created that specifically to make sure that people weren't missing things. It's so crazy when I ask somebody, what's the first thing you teach somebody when you train them? And they immediately say approach. Well, that's great, but you're not teaching them how to work a territory. You're not teaching them how to use Sales Rabbit. You're not teaching them pace. You're not teaching them self-talk between businesses. And sometimes that stuff is more important than versus saying the versus the, right? Like I've seen people get 6 demos a day and their approach is literally, yeah, can I show you what I'm doing for everybody? But they work hard and they go to everybody and they have confidence. Like, so I teach them the fundamentals first. That way they're not burning through territory. They're not wasting things. Just from an outline perspective, follow that field training outline. That has all the technical stuff on how I train. More importantly is from a mental approach. You have to be dialed in. Whenever I train, I mentally prepare myself that, man, tomorrow when I'm training, I'm going to be working extremely hard. Just be ready to pay that price. Because a lot of you, I kind of mentioned this on a different call, but a lot of you guys are talented enough to maybe go get 6 demos without thinking about it, right? Like you could go out tomorrow and be on autopilot and get 6 demos. New agents can't. They just can't. They're not skilled enough to do that yet. But if they only see you working on autopilot, that's what you're setting the bar at. And their whole career is going to be on autopilot. So when you're training somebody, you need to be dialed in. You also need to work it as if it's a train more, right? Like every time I train, I have the intensity as if it's a Monday on a train more. And everything else just follows, right? Like Mariah, she was training a brand new guy in Texas on Monday. They didn't protect anybody, but you know what she did? She showed him how to have 11 demos on his first day in the field. That is so much more valuable than giving somebody a $50 policy, right? Like you have to be on point. You have to coach yourself. Same thing, like if somebody's going to quit or if somebody doesn't make it, it can't be because you didn't give your best. And then if they have 2 or 3 0 days, but they're working, go with them, right? Because if you're not and they fail, then it's on you.
Wow, that was powerful. All right, guys, that is all the questions I have for Mr. Stolp. That absolutely crushed that. So, guys, we're going to flip it over. So, any comments for Aaron while we have him? Any questions, any comments from the crowd?
Hey, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
Todd Stiles. Hey, guys, I can just tell you because I went out and rode with Aaron, man. Guys, when I rode with him, we went to hair salons. We went to tanning salon. I mean, we went everywhere. So it wasn't a matter of, picking and choosing and things like that, because I wanted to find out what's going on with these Minnesota guys. And we went everywhere. I remember we went to this restaurant where the lady was, it was just like a little diner, man. And next thing you know, I mean, the lady she was an older lady, but it was just a cool conversation. And I was thinking to myself and we had just come from a jewelry store, for crying out loud. I remember thinking to myself, man, I'd probably never walk into this place. I mean, this would not be the place that I would try and sell to. But sure enough, man, we went to them and talked to them and had a good time. And the lady was super nice. But the point is, you go everywhere. Aaron goes everywhere. There's not places that he doesn't go. So thanks, Aaron, for being on, man. I really appreciate your information, man.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Anybody else? Guys, this was
I had a
recorded,
question.
so. Yep.
Yeah, I had a question. This is Mindy. I'm in Asheboro. Some of the businesses that I go in, especially around now where they're like short staffed and really rushing around, even though I'm doing my approaches, how can I get past that and how can I get them to stand there and listen? Being that they're super busy, or do you just make an appointment and hope it sticks?
Yes, I mean, really, really, really good question. And I mean this in the most heartfelt way. Like sometimes we can overthink things, right? Like in reality, all you're looking for on any given day is a cool, open-minded person that can make a decision. That's it. And they either will be or they're not, right? Like we can't control if they're busy. We can't control if they're cool. We can't control, there's a lot of things we can't control. I tell you what you can control though. You can control whether you walk in and find out, right? Like, and they're either gonna be or they're not. Now, there's some technical stuff, right? Like being able to get past a gatekeeper and how to transition to an employee. But in reality, all you can do is try, right? And you're gonna learn through it, or you're gonna gain more knowledge and set up an appointment. Or there's so many businesses where I just didn't want to go to, and it was psyching me out. And I had to simplify it. I'm like, well, I don't want to go there. Well, I guess let's just go cross them off, get this over with. Like they either will be cool or they won't. Let's just get it done with, right? And then they're the coolest person ever, right? Trust your systems, trust your approach. They're designed to help with everybody, right? But I also got really efficient at being able to transition to an employee, right? That's a skill. If a business owner is busy, oh my gosh, that's the hardest part of my job, is just catching up with them, I tell you what, Mindy, I'll definitely stop back and catch up with Van. But I tell you what, just so you know what it is that we do, because it's actually for you. We work with over 450 families out here on an individual basis. Easiest way to describe it, I guess. If you got hurt or sick and couldn't work, you'd still need a paycheck, right? And then now all I'm looking for is a light bulb. That's all I'm looking for is a light bulb. Oh, because they're going to give you one of two responses. Oh, yeah, I can't make decisions on that. You'd have to talk to Van, right? Well, cool. Then I'm not even showing her. I'm coming back to catch Van. But if they're like, well, yeah, awesome. Let me just show you the quick version. Right here, okay? And then I'm just showing them, right? But I got really, really efficient at knowing what to say. But again, a lot of it was just from trial and error. And whenever you're coming across an objection, I challenge you, every one of you guys, are you leaving that business saying, oh, I hate that objection? Or are you leaving that business saying, okay, so this part worked a little bit, but this part didn't. I'm going to try this next time, right? Can you imagine if, who invented the light bulb?
Edison.
Edison? Yeah, cool. That was my third guess. But can you imagine if Edison, like got so frustrated after the first filament failed? Ugh, I hate that no filament's working. No. He looked at it as like, cool, that doesn't work. Let's try this, right? Trial and error. I remember going to an area, I hated the corporate objection. So my second month in the business, I knew long-term, if I needed to get good at it, I needed to know how to deal with corporate. So I literally forced myself to go to a town where 90% of the businesses were corporate, and I got my teeth kicked in for 3 weeks. I found out how to deal with it, and now we've blown up and we work with everyone, right? So it's, again, paying the price, using it as a learning experience, trial and error. But it's what you're saying and how you're coaching yourself to get through that and how you view it. Because in reality, they're either going to be cool or they're not.
Mm-hmm. We're going to finish on this. How do you handle, we role played this earlier, how do you handle the corporate objection, Aaron? It was really good. Write this down, everybody.
Yeah, so guys, the concept of any objection, the concept of objections is so many people, they want to battle an objection, right? But what happens is if I told Kyle that Toyota sucks, he's going to dig his feet in and defend his purchase, right? Same thing with an objection. If all we're doing is battling it, they're going to dig their feet in and you're going to get nowhere. So I look at objections as if you guys remember getting that gift as a kid, whether it was for Christmas or birthdays, that you really didn't want, but it was from grandma, so you had to look happy, like socks. Oh, thanks, grandma. And you just put it aside. Same thing with any objection. You have to understand what the objection is. Take it. Be like, oh, yeah, that's cute. Doesn't matter. Right? And it's no big deal. So whenever someone's coming in for corporate, like, oh, yeah, you got to talk to corporate about that. Absolutely. And that's exactly why I wanted to catch you, Kyle, because being the general manager, you know way more about what decisions you could make for your store than I ever would. So I literally just wanted to catch you for 5 minutes, show you what I'm already doing for a lot of the other corporate managers in their stores, and just see if it's something that you can make the decision on. You got a second? So I'm not even talking about trying to sell them. I'm redirecting and just saying, yeah, man, you're the store manager though. You know way more about what decisions you can make with your store than I ever would. I just wanted to catch you and show it to you and see if it's something that you can make the decision on, just like all the other corporate store managers did. But what I'm doing is I'm like taking that corporate objection. Oh, yeah, that's cute. Putting it away. I'm empowering him. And then just asking for something simple, like the only objective of the approach is to get a place to sit down. Like, that's it. I'm not selling on my feet. All I'm doing is redirecting for a chance to show him.
Wow. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up on that. That was absolutely
Can I ask a quick
fire.
question?
Sure.
So I'm one of the type of people who has to, like, I feel like if I don't do everything exactly like by the book or exactly, what I was taught, that, maybe I'm doing it wrong. But from what I'm kind of hearing from, what you're saying is that it's okay to not like do exactly what I was taught, to kind of like be yourself, to kind of like, I guess, like, I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to ask, but basically, like,
I get what you're saying. So the answer to that is I was a robot when I first started. I was an absolute robot. Why? Because I knew the script word for word. And then once I knew the script word for word, I was able to experiment with different objections, right? Like my script is always the same. But when I was driving between businesses, when I was driving to my territory, I would literally role play objections that I was having a hard time with. Because a skill that is underutilized is being good on your feet, right? So I would literally practice objections while I was driving between businesses. Oh yeah, we're corporate. Oh yeah, I got to think about it. Oh, I got to ask my wife. Oh, I'm busy, right? And I'd literally throw myself an objection and then I'd have to answer it quickly. Because if I was good on my feet, I wouldn't get caught off guard, right? And the concept, do the words matter? Absolutely. Learn your sales because that's the only way you're going to get good at everything else, right? Because if you're an artist with an objection, but you don't know what your sales talk is, well, then it doesn't matter. So definitely learn the sales talk first and then start tailoring it to your personality. There's 3 phases of memorization. There's memorize, personalize, internalize, or memorize, internalize, personalize, right? Memorize is where you know the words. Internalize is where you start having dreams about your sales talk, right? Everyone's had that. Personalize is when it's you. The hard part is most people want to skip the first 2 phases and go to personalize. But what happens is then you add this because it sounds cool, or you do this, and next thing you know, your sales talk is 45 minutes long and it's nowhere near what the words are. And now you're trying a system that's unproven because you went to personalize. So memorize first, then internalize, and then personalize. Because if you add too much, cool, you already have it memorized, you can bring it back in. So I guess the answer to your question is both, right? You should definitely say the words that they teach you because they work. It's what I've done. But you should also make it you, right? Because you're not Kyle, you're not me, you're not Biglo, you're not, Zach Tolbert. You're you. But the only way you get it to be you effectively is if you know it first.
Yep. 100%, guys, 100%. And just like Aaron was a robot, and guys, guess what? He was a robot that wrote 17,000 his first week. He was a robot that wrote 56,000. And guess what? There was no personalizing at that time. He was doing if you watched him, every word that he said was on the sales talk. And guys, guess what? He sold 56K in his first 5 weeks. I'm sure he wasn't mad that he got it down word for word. So you will too. So guys, what I've heard this say from his leader, Justin, is everything you need to know, you learn in kindergarten, right? So really all you need to know is what's on the script. Obviously, over time, you're going to personalize it to your personality. Aaron's a little bit different than me, a little bit different than Brian Glazinski. Yeah, we may have a small little tweak here and there once we've been here for 3 or 4 years. But yeah, definitely know it word for word. So guys, this call was recorded. Aaron, thank you so much. You crushed it, man. Guys, he is going to be an agency owner. This is super exciting. Aaron is like one of my best friends in the business, and he's been here since Monday, following me. But the thing is, I've actually learned way more from Aaron than I probably taught him. So thanks for coming down, man. So super pumped. He's going to crush it as an agency owner up there in good old Minnesota. So yeah, guys, let's go out there and just utilize what we've learned today. It's not what you know, but it's what you use, what you know that matters in this business. So hopefully you guys took some good notes today and use it. And let's get through the hard part of the career first so we can experience freedom and flexibility later on in life. So appreciate you guys. Have a big hump day, and we will see you guys tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.